morning. This is the Eager Beaver Show.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters, CanadianTarot.com, your uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind.
Well, good morning and hello, kids, and welcome to Season 4 and episode number 494 of the Daily Beaver Morning Show here on the Crier Media Network. Yeah! Today, recording day, is Friday, October 18th, 2024, and no matter what the weather is outside, it is going to be a beautiful day here at the Beaver Lodge because your beaver is extremely happy today because today is Cyndi Lauper concert day. She's kicking off her Girls Just Want to Have Fun farewell tour in Montreal tonight. She'll be in Toronto in 2 nights from now. And she is the first concert I ever bothered my mother enough to buy tickets to take me to see. So my first stadium concert, the Bangles opened with Cyndi Lauper. She's So Unusual tour. So she's been my favorite since I was a kid. And I am going with the one girlfriend I've ever had.
Oh.
Yes. We've remained very good friends. She loves her as well. So it's going to be a really fun night out. We're taking her daughter as well. So it's just going to be a good time with a good friend, somebody that I love very much. And yeah. So I'm a happy beaver. A big thank you goes to our podcast founding sponsors, the Peppermaster, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, and CanadianTarot.com. Before we go any further, Mr. Grizzly, how's your mental health today? I'm doing swell.
Well, I'm glad to hear you're doing good. I didn't get hardly any sleep last night, so I'm kind of a mess. I woke up at 2 a.m. and didn't really get back to sleep well after that. So yeah, I'm a little at the moment. That's just how it goes sometimes, unfortunately.
I'm so sorry. Yeah, I'm as someone who has like big troubles with insomnia. I know. I not only sympathize, I empathize. Let's put it that way. I just noticed, actually, kids. If you watch the show every now and then, I mentioned how I was a debater in high school.
Mm-hmm.
Did fairly well. I just noticed as I was looking in there. This is my cup from when I went to the provincial debating championships in Stratford.
Yeah, it's reversed, unfortunately, because your camera's in mirror position.
Oh, that's too bad.
It's backwards. Yeah, you have to switch
I
it
guess
on
there's
and
no
off.
way to fix that on the phone now. Oh wow.
You can, but it's a pain in the butt, so don't worry
It's a
about
pain
it.
in the butt. But yeah, if you can read backwards, like this, and of course, a Stratford. So of course, the theater logo. So yeah, pretty cool. All right, Mr. Grizzly, do I assume that we have a little more time today?
Yeah, we do. It's Friday,
Okay.
so I can go a little bit longer today.
Oh, by the way, how's stuff going?
Uh,
Can you hear?
yeah.
First time, well, too early to tell.
it's just a lot of uphill work right now, and things aren't going as swimmingly as I would have hoped, but that has more to do with me than anything else.
Okay.
It's a me issue right now, and I'm working on it. I've just been having a tough week,
Yeah.
mentally, and the other day I had a terrible migraine. I had planned, what was it, Wednesday? I had planned to hit the pavement on Wednesday after lunch, and I got up, started my morning. We did the show. I did a bunch of stuff here on the computer, sending out and getting in contact with people and doing some production work at the same time. Had a bite to eat, took a shower, got changed, and I'm like, oh God, I gotta sit down. I gotta sit down. I had a brutal sinus migraine, like absolutely brutal, and it wiped out the rest of my day. It was
Mm.
horrible. So yesterday I was very busy yesterday, and I got quite a bit done, but I'm so far behind because, like I said, Monday I had plans to do one thing, and that went sideways because with all
Right.
this data that was lost. So yeah, it's not been a productive week for me, unfortunately. That's okay. Today's another day, and tomorrow's or Monday's the start of another week. So I think I'll be able to turn it around. Just a little frustrated with myself right now.
Well, and then there's the whole fact about day ones being just general suckage.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, uh, yeah, yeah. Uh, um, the, I've been there. Yeah, it's not fun. It's not fun, but hopefully, it's anything new environment and new pursuit and whatnot is always a bit of a challenge at first because there's always a learning curve, and you're um, not only learning what's going on there, but you're meeting new people and discovering a whole new culture and atmosphere. And so it's a lot. It's a lot, and if you're not sleeping well, it takes extra effort and
Mm,
energy and focus.
exactly.
So yeah, no, it's a lot. I get you. All right, kits and cubs. Oh boy,
I'm
has
just
there been news?
I'm just looking at the blowback right now from all of the incels that followed Jordan Peterson, and there's a lot of incels that follow him. We all know this, but they're all like, "You're gonna sue Trudeau. You get to sue him," and I'm like, "No, you don't. That was testimony under oath." Because Trudeau had admitted that Jordan Peterson and Tucker Carlson are funded by Russians. It's not a big surprise. We've all been known this for a long time. It's just finally been confirmed.
Right. Yep.
So, there's a huge blowback about that right now. And the blowback is hilarious because all of these people chiming in who don't know A, the first thing about Canadian law, B, what the testimony is, C,
Right.
what an inquiry is, and D, when you speak under oath,
Right.
to perjure yourself under oath, the crime is pretty serious. So for him
Like,
to say that, it's because he knows that.
yeah. I mean, let's be honest here, right? Just like how many people actually read the full report?
Yeah. Yeah.
How many people are going to watch this film? Like more people than normal will turn into CPAC to watch his testimony
Hmm.
on the day or whatnot or whatever news network they're using to do that. But how many really out of the whole population? How many of
And
us are
again,
relying on the clips and all that kind of stuff, right? So it's oh my God, he just said that. Let's just run with the hot take. And unfortunately, that works for a lot. It works for a whole lot.
sadly it does, but not a single one of those people are NSICOP cleared, nor have they read the report.
Well, yeah.
So
I
they don't
mean,
even know what's in it.
that's like Pierre Poilievre in a statement saying that the prime minister is lying. And how would you know that he's lying because you don't know what's in the report?
Yeah. So if anybody's lying, it's you, Pierre Poilievre. It's you.
So he's like, this might be your opinion, but you are making it as a statement of fact, and you have no way of knowing that that's a fact. The prime minister may be lying; that is within the realm of possibility.
Yes. Yeah, it
But
is.
you don't know. You have no way of knowing. The prime minister very well might be saying, "Hey, this Father Merker's never going to come and look. Let me say whatever." Now, on the other hand, there are two other leaders that have seen it.
Mm.
And if the prime minister attempted that, they could take advantage of that at that moment and say the prime minister's lying.
And they haven't
So,
done that, have they?
no.
And another leader is in the process of getting his clearance.
Yes.
So, and again, Legault would be the first one to come out, guns a blazing. Actually, maybe Singh would. maybe Singh, but
Blanchet.
Blanchette, sorry. I mix them up sometimes. I think Singh would probably be the first one to come out guns a-blazing. He just lied about that. That didn't happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That did not happen.
Yeah. Now, before we get into that, because was trying to figure out where to put it in, because it's sort of like an aside thing before we get the meat of it. But since you raised it, I sent you a clip of Mr. Singh. And Mr. Singh, once again, sadly, is disappointing us here.
Yeah. Hang on. I'll bring the clip up. Let me just make sure the volume is up, because there we go. Yeah, let's have a look at this. This is, just judge for yourself.
Lots of reaction today to the Prime Minister's blockbuster testimony at the inquiry yesterday that he has the names of Conservative MPs at risk or involved in foreign interference. Pierre Poilievre is demanding Justin Trudeau release those names. The NDP's Jagmeet Singh is echoing the call and also slamming the Conservative leader for not getting security clearance to get access to that information. CTV's Judy Trin is looking into all of this and joins us now. Judy.
Sandy, Pierre Poilievre is facing increasing pressure to get security clearance to view the list of names and find out how his leadership race may have been impacted.
It is ludicrous to me that someone who claims to want to be the Prime Minister of this country doesn't want to know of ongoing and serious threats that impact Canadians.
The NDP leader is criticizing his Conservative counterpart's decision to remain in the dark after the Prime Minister testified about the list of parliamentarians who may have engaged in foreign interference.
I have the names of a number of parliamentarians, former parliamentarians and/or candidates in the Conservative Party of Canada.
Pierre Poilievre says his chief of staff received classified briefings, and at no time was he informed that any current or former Conservative parliamentarian or candidate knowingly participated in foreign interference.
Mr. Poilievre doesn't have a security clearance.
This former head of Canada's intelligence agency says it's not protocol to provide that level of classified information to someone who can't discipline parliamentarians.
First of all, his chief of staff probably wouldn't have been provided that information because he had no way of using it. He had no need to know.
The risks to all parties were tabled in a June report. It revealed alleged foreign political meddling in Conservative leadership races by China and India, but details were redacted. The diplomatic crisis between India and Canada is deepening after the RCMP said they have evidence that the Indian government tried to silence sick Canadians with a campaign of violence involving extortion, home invasions, and shootings.
The only reason I think Pierre Poilievre is reluctant to take the information or get the information necessary is because he wants to protect his party above the country, and that is absolutely wrong.
Both Poilievre and Singh are calling for the public release of the names. Singh says it can be done without putting Canada's intelligence sources and methods at risk. Sandy.
CTV's Judy Trin.
Yeah.
Okay. I understand that Jagmeet Singh is in a mode right now where he's trying to create distance with the governing party, given the supply and confidence agreement, and that there's an election coming at some point. That does not absolve you of using discernment. If all you are going to do is adopt the same policy as do the Conservatives, now the Conservatives, for them, it's oppose everything, whether it's good or bad, just oppose
everything. Yeah.
Oppose everything. Don't propose or don't say, okay, yeah, we like this. It's oppose everything. Now, with certain exceptions, of course, because we saw them vote with the anti-scab legislation. We saw them vote for C-70, which is the new measures that we took to counter, this type of foreign interference thing. So, but they don't, when they do support anything, they don't trumpet it at all and draw no attention to it whatsoever. They do not draw attention to the fact that in that particular instance, Canada was not broken.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Canada was working quite fine.
It doesn't suit their narrative, right? It doesn't fit the narrative that they keep telling us that we're a broken country and only he can fix it.
Exactly. So, but it's usually oppose. the public stance is oppose on everything. The NDP, right? It's draw contrast.
Mhm.
Yes, we're on this side of the political spectrum, but we're not the Liberals because we're different in this way. You don't have to draw contrast every damn time, just like you don't have to oppose every damn time. So here's like, he's sitting there, and the expression in English goes, having your cake and eating it too. But in French, c'est vouloir le beurre et l'argent du beurre. So wanting the butter and the money from the butter, the sale of the butter. And I think this one sort of applies more in here because he still wants to slide Poilievre for not getting his clearance. But in order to establish contrast with the Liberals, wants the names released. So, Pierre, go get your clearance. Liberals, give the guy what he's asking for without getting his clearance. What the hell?
What the hell?
Jagmeet! Dude.
Yeah. It's, yeah.
There are ways of doing it without compromising investigate. Really? What are they? What are they? If there are ways, that would have been a perfect opportunity to suggest a couple, Mr. Singh. But this is the thing that politicians say, this can be done. Just like Peter Julian said the other day with regard to the agreements on pharmacare. He said, if the Prime Minister, if the Liberals want this done, they'll be able to get this done with the provinces in a matter of a couple of weeks with no accounting for the fact that this is a negotiation, that there's somebody on the other side of the table that could do things or say things or extend things that make it such that it doesn't happen in 3 weeks, right? This is, the federal government has the total and complete power to actually have the government from the province sit across the table, even take the meeting in the first place, and then make them agree.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way it's presented. That's bull. This is the same damn thing. Because if there was a way to do that, Peter Julian would have said after that, and you accomplish this by doing this, this, and this. He didn't do that. Right? The other day when I suggested where's a course of action that the Prime Minister could do is to get all the opposition party leaders together, since Pierre still won't do it, pass a bill quickly, like they did for COVID measures.
Which is easy enough to do.
Make it law. Stop complaining. Don't berate. Legislate. Pass a bill. Make it law. That leaders of federal parties should get this information. It is now an option for premiers to get them after C70, because we've learned that foreign interference doesn't only happen at the federal level, but at the provincial municipal level as well. So it's now an option for premiers to get it, but federal party leaders should absolutely get it. Make it law. And if he doesn't want to get it, prorogue. And in an extreme case, and this is a little part of civics that not a lot of people know, technically, constitutionally, our government has 5 years.
Correct. Not 4, it's 5.
We do 4. And we have a fixed election date law. But Stephen Harper showed that could be overridden.
He changed it to every 4 years and then made it 5.
Unless I don't want to.
Yeah.
Well, he didn't make that 5. Constitutionally, it is 5.
Yeah,
he went early instead. So, the Prime Minister could go, this is of such national importance. We'll wait. That's when I suggest that. I'm suggesting there's a plan, there's a course of action. There's a way that you can try to get I don't want to say coerce him, but make it much more uncomfortable for him to not get it. Make there be a consequence. Make him put his money where his mouth is. There is a way. But if I just turn around and I say, there are ways to do that if the government really wanted to, and did not be helpful in any single way by suggesting a course of action or method, then I'm just blowing hot air up your butt.
Mm-hmm.
These are legislators. They have access to all the information, the best minds, policy wonks, process wonks, that if they want to find a way, I mean, if there is no way, there is none. But if they want to find a way, there are ways. You could actually put some stuff out there and suggest some courses of action and not just say it's possible. So when Mr. Singh comes up and says, there are ways of releasing this information without compromising stuff, then you need to give us a few examples. You can't just say that.
No.
So very disappointing, because so far there is nobody that has said something yet that would convince me that there exists a context in which releasing the names now, again, as if we release intelligence and names on demand, like that's the
Especially
thing.
while the investigation is ongoing, right?
Right. And there may be court actions, and we're getting information from some of the intelligence is from our Five Eye partners. Do we want that relationship to continue?
Well, and
Do
here's
we
the
want
other
to keep
thing.
on getting that information? Do we want to keep on being trustworthy enough to be receiving that information? These things matter. There are other things at play here.
Well, not only that, but you also have to remember that because he is sworn to secrecy, that he cannot release the names. He cannot
Yeah.
release the names.
He cannot.
He cannot. He can. The names can only be released when the report comes out. That's it. He's bound by secrecy for life.
Mhm.
He cannot release the names.
Mm-hmm. Now, I'm assuming there's a mechanism by which the Prime Minister could release the names if he wanted to. I'm not sure whether or not I haven't heard anybody yet specifically say in anything that I've seen on TV or that I've read that the Prime Minister can or can't. But there seems to be something that when it comes to some thought out there that when it comes to the Prime Minister that he explicitly can. I'm not saying that he can or can't. I'm just saying I don't know. I haven't seen anything corroborating that itself. But regardless of whether or not the Prime Minister can or can't, even if he could, doesn't mean he should. And given that we do have investigations, given that we do have court cases where we would like to have people face some accountability and not get off on a technicality, given that we have sources and methods, given that we have a privileged relationship with 4 other nations with regard to sharing of security intelligence information, and we would like that to continue. There are other considerations at play here. You don't just release names on demand.
Doesn't work that way.
And for Mr. Singh, again, to be sitting there and going, yes, release the names, there are ways, but being unhelpful as to providing any direction as to the ways. Because if he says there are ways, I assume that someone in his party would have researched that. I hope someone in his party would have researched that, or in his office, that there are indeed ways before saying it.
Mm-hmm.
I would hope that Mr. Singh was responsible to make sure to verify that there was actually something real to back up that statement before making it. Normally, I would be inclined to trust or to believe, but I have seen enough times now so far how Mr. Singh has played a little fast and loose with process points when representing how things actually work to the public. I would like to hope that in this particular context, because there are the partisan things and then there are the country things, and you can still keep on slagging your opponent gratuitously every second, every 30 seconds, or with every intervention on party things and opinion things, and we should proceed this way or not this or this way. But when it comes a security thing or a country thing, we still participate in an actual national interest way. You can do that. You can criticize the Prime Minister on tax policy and still be shoulder to shoulder on national security. Right? That's not a stretch. people will buy that.
Oh, yes.
Right? It's like, there's a time for politics and there's a time for statesmanship. This is a time for statesmanship. So yes, I'm very happy that the Prime Minister's created a mechanism by which I can be informed and, you know, handle my own business within my own party and communicate with Canadians about what it is that is going on in the manner that I see it. Right? That kind of stuff exists. So this is a little disappointing. Now, Mr. Grizzly, Pierre put out a statement. I think I sent you a link to a tweet, and I just wanted to show it on the screen for the kids. We won't read it, but I marked things in 3 specific colors on this thing. Pierre Poilievre's statement basically consists of only 3 types of things.
Mm-hmm.
Outright damn lies.
Yes.
Okay. There's 2 of them. And then
So
things
debunked
that
lies.
have already been debunked that he's
Yeah.
repeating, despite the fact that they are debunked. So I should
Mhm.
say outright new lies. Lies or things that have been debunked that he keeps on insisting on repeating, even though they have been proven not true. And then just some partisan general pablum that is completely irrelevant to the point at hand as to whether or not he is getting his security clearance and doing the very bare frickin' minimum he needs to be showing that he actually cares about the nation, regardless of who is the government of the day. And just flailing about. Again, with more information that keeps on coming out, and there's been a couple of plot twists coming from other parts of the world that we'll get into. That statement is looking more and more like a panicked meltdown.
I think it is. I thought right from the get-go that's what that was.
Yeah, well, I said right from the get-go, but it's, yeah, this is, things are not happy in conservative land right now.
No.
So if you could show the screen.
Yeah, no problem. Just a second. There you go.
So there you go. So the 2 X's are the things that we are going to focus on. And you'll see the blue and the green there. So those last things at the 4 things at the end, it is Justin Trudeau, who had a document sit there for 40 days, whatnot. These are all process things. These are all things that are being invested in the inquiry. These are all things that you can establish new processes and methods and systems and whatnot to correct and all that kind of stuff. They have nothing to do with the fact that he is not informed or does not seek to be informed in any way, shape, or form. It's just empty attempts at throwing haymakers or whatnot, or it's the basically throwing everything and the kitchen sink part into
Let's
it.
see what sticks. Except it's filled with lies, innuendos, bullshit, half-truths. It's just a garbage statement from a garbage human being.
But
period.
even if these things did happen, as you say, the ones in green,
Yeah.
all right, it still doesn't change. It doesn't detract from the fact that you're not getting your clearance, and you certainly didn't volunteer to testify. Now, did you? Though your party has been implicated. The Prime Minister has to be there.
Well, I had a
But you
conversation.
put yourself on the list and said, I'd be willing to testify because, oh my God, so my party might be implicated. Something might be happening there. My MPs have been targeted. Some of my MPs might be involved. Yeah, I'll go sit on the stand for the best interests of my country.
Well, I had a conversation with somebody the other day regarding Poilievre's lack of clearance for NSICOP to view the documents. And he says, well, I understand why he's doing it. He doesn't want to be gagged. And I go, dude, that is a bullshit excuse, and you know it. The man can now say whatever he wants about anything because he's not read a single document because he doesn't have the clearance to read the documents. None of the other leaders are doing this, including the leader of the bloc. He's in the process of getting his clearance so he can read this. I go, it's just bullshit politicking by this guy who doesn't know anything so he can put out statements like this, which is, by the way, I'm not a lawyer, but in my mind, this looks libelous to me.
Yeah, no.
If there's a lawyer out there who can tell us this looks libelous, I mean, the second paragraph, But he won't, because Justin Trudeau is doing what he always does. He is lying. He is lying to distract from a Liberal caucus revolt against his leadership and revelations. He knowingly allowed Beijing to interfere with him and help win 2 elections. Okay, once again, Beijing, not China. Beijing is a city in China. He won't say the word China because we're tied to China for another 24 years or something because of FIPA or something, whatever it is. I can't remember what the timeline that remains, 20 years? Anyway.
Yeah.
His second paragraph, our third paragraph, I was briefed on October 14th, 2024 by Natalie Druin, National Security and Intel Advisor to the Prime Minister, David Morrison, Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs at Global Affairs Canada, and Danielle Rogers, Director of CSIS, about the matter of foreign interference from India. The CSIS Act allows the government to offer information to any Canadian about specific risks of foreign interference without forcing them into sworn secrecy or controlling what they say.
Okay. Now that is one of the new lies that he put in that the next clip we are going to show you is going to completely obliterate. And what's the other one, Mr. Grizzly, with the X in front of it?
Furthermore, my Chief of Staff has received classified briefings from the government. At no time has the government told me or my Chief of Staff of any current or former Conservative parliamentarian or candidate knowingly participating in foreign interference. Again, more bullshit.
Yes, and in the previous clip that we showed you, this former CSIS director, Ward Elcock, and who you're going to see in the next clip, because the conversation features him and former CSIS director Richard Fadden, basically gives you a preview of what's going to be said here. But basically is that the Chief of Staff, he or she, would never be considered as a person to be included in the loop, specifically for need to know information, because the Chief of Staff has no power whatsoever to discipline an MP or to not sign a party paper, a nomination paper. The Chief of Staff can do nothing. And even if the Chief of Staff were to be given this information, was security cleared to have this information, but the leader of the opposition was not, the Chief of Staff would not be able to share this security cleared information with someone who is not security cleared. The fact that the Chief of Staff would even know does not necessarily mean that the Chief of Staff would be informing Pierre Poilievre. So when Pierre Poilievre says that he received no information either way, he didn't, because he could not. The Chief of Staff would never have that information to give to him in the first place.
Well, even if he did, he couldn't share it. He'd be perjuring himself.
Exactly.
Right? He'd be committing a crime if he shared top secret information with somebody who was not top secret cleared. He's now a criminal.
Exactly. So it's a lie on 2 levels. And he is representing the fact that his Chief of Staff did not tell him any of these things, so there was no cause for him to take action, as being equivalent. The equivalent, just as good, the equivalent of having his NSICOP level top secret clearance and getting that information for himself and then deciding whether or not he could or could not act on something. He is representing that as something that is equivalent.
It's not.
That's the lie. That's the third big lie. It's a lie on 3 levels. Let's go to this. It's going to run for a little bit, but this is, for those of you who are, this is a yay civics moment here.
I'm going to start it a little bit in.
What he always does, he is lying. We've got 2 former CSIS directors here with me to talk about all of this. We've got Ward Elcock and we've got Richard Fadden. Gentlemen, I can't think of 2 better people to have with me on a day like this. Ward, let's start with you, and let's start with what you made of the revelations made by the Prime Minister that he's aware of Conservatives past, present, involved in foreign interference in some way.
I think the first point I'd make is that, and the Prime Minister ultimately alluded to it, it isn't just the Conservative Party that has problems in this area. Virtually every party at one time or another has had problems in this area. So it's really not a surprise. foreign governments seek to influence whoever they can, and they're always looking for opportunities. So they're not liberal specific or conservative specific or NDP specific. Having said that, I thought the point the PM was ultimately making, which he did, I thought, which he did successfully make, that he had the information for himself and respective Liberal Party members, and he had taken action to deal with the issues in a variety of ways without explaining to us what he did in each case, but that he had dealt with the issues that came before him and found ways to ensure that people who shouldn't be elected as MPs didn't get elected as MPs or didn't run as MPs. And I thought he was fairly effective at doing that. The issue, the broader issue is of whether Mr. Poilievre should do it or not, is a decision for the Conservative Party, but I think they're paying a small price for it, frankly.
Okay, I do want to dig in the options available to CSIS, to the government, and to the Conservatives on this. Dick Fadden, just to get your reaction to what we saw there today, that an inquiry into his government's handling of foreign interference, he used it as a platform to sort of criticize his opponent on this and their approach. So what do you make of the move today from the Prime Minister?
Well, I don't think he should have. It was the one instance during his fairly lengthy testimony where, by and large, he was neutral. I mean, he clearly pushed and pulled depending upon his perspective. But I don't think it was particularly the right moment to do it. I think he is correct in accusing Mr. Poilievre of not being in full compliance with the totality of his obligations, but I don't think this is going to make any difference. To talk to Mr. Poilievre's perspective, I don't agree with him, but I do understand that getting broad briefings on foreign intelligence on a whole range of issues could be problematic, although there are a whole raft of people who do this and can still speak. There's a difference between that and being told a limited number of your MPs may be subject to foreign interference and you need to know. He can select what he is being briefed on. So I think even at that level, he's being unwise.
Mr. Poilievre, you mean? Because,
yes, indeed.
But to even get that briefing, just help me understand this, because we have a statement from the Conservatives where they say the Prime Minister is lying under oath, which is not an insignificant claim, but they say they can say this with comfort because in the statement, Mr. Poilievre says, "My Chief of Staff has received classified briefings from the government. At no time has the government told me or my Chief of Staff of any current or former Conservative parliamentarian or candidate knowingly participating in foreign interference." Now, Richard Fadden, we know his Chief of Staff, Ian Todd, has clearance to be briefed, but the Prime Minister said these briefings are on a need-to-know basis. If there's an issue involving parliamentarians, would CSIS, would the government brief the Chief of Staff in the opposition office on something that sensitive?
Well, to begin with, CSIS wouldn't do it without the government's agreement. It is inconceivable that CSIS would go forward and brief a Chief of Staff or a parliamentarian on something this serious without the government's agreement. And I cannot envisage the government saying, yes, this is a good idea, talk to the Chief of Staff, not to the principal. So I think this is a little bit stretching the circumstances to suit a particular political objective.
So
I thought that was a very interesting and diplomatic way of saying he's lying through his teeth.
Stop.
Because that's basically what he just did.
Yeah.
He did it very diplomatically. So we'll continue.
So you would not advise briefing a Chief of Staff as opposed to the actual party leader in your own job?
Never.
Ward Elcock, how do you see that?
What could the Chief of Staff do with the information? Mr. Poilievre doesn't have a clearance, so the Chief of Staff can't tell him the information. And the Chief of Staff has no power to do anything about the MPs or make decisions about the MPs because he's not the leader of the party. There's really no point to briefing the Chief of Staff on those issues.
So, Ward, just to stick with you, when the Prime Minister testified today that he was alarmed by what he saw as explosive evidence of foreign interference, and then he went on to speak about the information he has about the Conservatives and that he asked CSIS to find a way to brief the opposition on this. He said he ran into the barrier of the lack of security clearance for Pierre Poilievre. Is that a legitimate excuse for the Prime Minister in terms of his inability to brief the Conservatives properly as he wanted?
Yes, I think it is, and I think the response from the Conservatives, which was to allege the Prime Minister is lying, is, I mean, the Prime Minister's statement was provocative. the Conservative response is equally provocative and irresponsible.
Okay, so Richard Fadden, is there a method short of Mr. Poilievre having security clearance where they could disclose to him information of this kind, of people in the Conservative Party who are either compromised by a foreign state or targeted by a foreign state?
The whole objective of the security clearance process at the level of the federal government is to make sure that classified information is not passed on except to people with security clearances. So the short answer to your question is there is no other way of doing it. He needs a security classification, a security clearance. And the Prime Minister was correct, I think, when he explained at some length that being a Privy Councillor does not give you access to information. It's an honour that many people acquire by serving in the Cabinet and elsewhere. Nothing to do with security clearance.
Okay, so this is an important point because defenders of Mr. Poilievre has said he was a cabinet minister in the Harper government. He would have had security clearance at that point in time. But Maxime Bernier was a cabinet minister in the Stephen Harper government. He's still a Privy Councillor. I don't know if anyone would suggest his security clearance is still valid. So what's the process there? It has to be renewed? How does it work?
Well, if you've been a cabinet minister or anybody else for that matter, Ward or I, who've had a security clearance, and a year or two after you had your clearance, they would probably renew it after a quick check. If it's been some time, a la Mr. Bernier, they would start all over again. Generally speaking, in the federal government, your security clearance lapses maximum 5 years, absolute maximum, and in some cases, the number of years is lowered.
Okay, so Ward, how would that apply to someone like Mr. Poilievre in that he is a Privy Councillor, but he's no longer a cabinet because he's in opposition, but he's still a parliamentarian? It's not like he's left and done other things and gone to work for a company with ties to China or anything like that. He's a public figure still in public life. How would it apply to someone like him?
Well, his clearance would have to be renewed. I don't imagine that it would be a 6-month process. Which it can be in a brand new clearance. But having said that, there would be a process before it got renewed.
Okay, I want to play a clip. This is from the Conservative Party lawyer who was representing the party at this inquiry, who not surprisingly took issue with the Prime Minister's characterization of things, accused him of grandstanding for political reasons, essentially, in his cross-examination. And he argued that important information could be shared with the Leader of the Opposition, with Mr. Poilievre, using something called a threat reduction measure or other methods under the CSIS Act. Just have a look at this exchange.
The TRM would be unable to identify which of those individuals are in question unless the leader chose to get a security clearance to be able to hear those names. And the fact that the leader does not leaves him in a position of being unable to protect the integrity of his party.
I'm going to suggest that you're wrong on your understanding of the law as to what a TRM can and can't do and who it can be directed to. And I'm going to suggest that the fact that you leveled this accusation earlier today and didn't mention the possibility of a TRM was just for the purpose of grandstanding here today.
On the contrary.
Okay, on the contrary. Ward Elcock, what's your view on this? Threat reduction measures have been used in the past. They've been limited in some ways, successful in others. How does it apply to this circumstance?
Well, the threat reduction measures came in after I left as director, although, to be honest, there have always been some things that have been done which would be the equivalent of threat reduction measures in modern parlance. It was stretching the limits, but on occasion things could be done that would be called threat reduction now. Threat reduction doesn't really, in this case, get you in any further ahead. In some cases, you might be able to do a preventative briefing to an MP that might assist him in knowing what he was actually confronting or where he was being led, but you still wouldn't be able to provide him with chapter and verse on what was going on, and nor would you be able to provide it to the leader because you're doing a threat reduction measure. You wouldn't give him all the information if he didn't have a security clearance. So there really is nothing that a threat reduction measure is going to do unless it's somebody who is entirely unwitting and you can give them enough information to point them in the direction that maybe they should be careful or think about what somebody is telling them.
Yeah, I mean, Richard Fadden, we saw threat reduction measures used with Michael Chong about his family being targeted by the Chinese government in Hong Kong. They were so vague, he didn't understand the full implications of it until the documents got leaked to the Globe and Mail. one of the reasons we're here today. So how do you see this? Can a threat reduction measure be used on this issue of MPs about the questions about the leadership race in the Conservative Party that NSI COP found?
I don't think so. I think Ward is essentially correct. In order for a threat reduction measure to operate successfully here, you would have to provide classified information to a reasonable level to get people to shift their behavior and their way of thinking. You can't give classified information to people if they don't have security clearances. Can you muck around on the margins and try and get people to think differently? Yes, but that's not what we're talking about. I do not believe this is why the threat reduction measures were introduced in the CSIS Act. You may be able to stretch them to the utter limit, legally, not the model that people had in mind when these were introduced in the CSIS Act, and I don't think they would work here.
This got extremely political today. Right? There are important things being talked about primarily in a lot of the other examinations in terms of how to deal with the safeguarding of certain things. But, the central headline coming out of this is the allegation, Dick Fadden, that the Prime Minister has made here, essentially accusing the Conservative leader of being unserious about this. What do you make of where we are at the end of his final testimony at this inquiry?
Well, I think in the end, history will say if he had not made that accusation, he did a very good job of being a witness. He was fairly balanced. He gave reasonable answers. He pushed and pulled depending upon what his perspective was. But I think in the final analysis, he lapsed into really extreme partisanship when he made this accusation. And he made it in terms that could not help but enrage the Conservative leader. So if that was his objective, I think it worked. Did it advance the cause of national security? Did it advance the interest of the inquiry and the commissioner's work? I'm not so sure.
What about the public's understanding of things? Because this whole, I can't read it because I'll be gagged, and it's a trap, as Mr. Blanchette described it at one point in the process, I think during the David Johnston phase of this. Some of the conversations we're having now about how security clearance works, is that useful, or is this all just partisanship?
No, I don't think so. I mean, to give you an example, when I was still working, I appeared before parliamentary committees, and God knows I had enough classified information to fill,
I would imagine.
Big box.
Yeah.
But I was still able to take that information and to paint a picture of context and of environment. Just because you have a security clearance doesn't mean you have to become a Carthusian monk and never speak. There are all sorts of people who have security clearances, both in this country, in the United Kingdom, and in Australia. You have to be careful, and as I said a little bit earlier, the individual can select on what he wishes to be briefed. Now, if he wants to maintain utter and complete independence to criticize the government on the Indian issue, then you don't take a briefing on the Indian issue. But that doesn't mean more broadly on FI, you shouldn't be able to take a briefing and still talk about it. A whole bunch of people in and out of government do it on a regular basis.
Ward, what are your thoughts as a final point on what Dick had to say there, that the Prime Minister went into extreme partisanship, but maybe he delivered the message politically, I guess he wanted to deliver, in sort of undercutting the security clearance arguments?
Look, I mean, I spent more than 40 years in government. To expect politicians not to be partisan is a bit like expecting chefs not to cook. I agree with Dick that it did to some extent mar what was a pretty impressive performance by the Prime Minister, frankly. But having said that, this is a Royal Commission. Most Royal Commissions have a large dose of political whatever around them, especially when the senior politicians are part of the process. So it's inevitable and inescapable, and one could wish that it didn't happen. And Dick's right that it would be better if it didn't happen, but that's politics.
It is politics. Look, I want to thank you both for being here. There's a bunch of other things I do want to talk to you about at another time, India being one of them. We talked about it a bit on Monday, Dick, but we'll have you back. Ward Elcock, Richard Fadden, former CSIS directors, thanks so much for being here today, gentlemen.
Wow. That reminds me of this. I'm going to show you a quick clip just so that we can all compare and contrast for a moment, if you will, because this clip is telling. Now it's a little bit more telling today than it was at the time, because now it just goes, well, this seems to make a little bit more sense to me.
Mr. President Pierre Poilievre, leader of His Majesty's loyal opposition.
Loyal opposition.
Absolutely. We believe that opposition is an act of loyalty in our system.
We do too, unfortunately.
We know that at the time that was a little bit of an interesting moment. Yes, for those who are listening at home, it's when President Joe Biden came to Canada. There was a reception line, and Pierre Poilievre was in there, and he said that he was the leader of His Majesty's loyal opposition. And Joe Biden looked at him and said, "Loyal, huh?" Yeah. While chuckling.
He knew. It's like something tells me he knew something we didn't. I'm merely speculating, but it seems today that clip just, kind of, I think it's pretty telling today, to be honest with you.
Well, you need to put a pin in that thought, Mr. Grizzly, because I got something for you later.
Okay.
It's along with that. So in this clip, we got a nice big civics lesson, right? So the chief of staff thing, bullshit.
Yeah.
It'll take me, bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't need security clearance. He had it when he was a cabinet minister. Bullshit.
Yeah.
And
it's lapsed, and he doesn't have NSICOP clearance. So even if he did have his certain clearance, he doesn't have NSICOP clearance. So he can't look at the documents, period.
Yeah. And then the second point about the briefings that he would have received from the national, I can't remember the NSIA, the National Security and Intelligence Advisor, the Prime Minister's National Security and Intelligence Advisor, once again being presented as equivalent to seeing unredacted information. And again, talking about the TRMs, the threat reduction measures, that even Michael Chong complained were pretty much freaking useless to him. So if the meetings that they're having with MPs to let them know that, hey, you need to be careful for this reason, big overall generalized reason that's not too specific without saying who and what and where and why, but you just need to be a little careful. That's what the threat reduction measure is. So if that doesn't give them enough actionable information to do anything with, really, what do you think is the level of information that Pierre is getting through the National Security Intelligence Advisor in briefings? There's this thing going on in this country or this part of the world that could have this, and this subject might come up, but not like so-and-so picked up a phone and called this and asked about this. Right?
Mm-hmm.
He's representing twice in that letter, in that statement. He represented these things as being equivalent to try and show that he is not irresponsible, that he is indeed on top of things, and that there is nothing to create the impression that there is nothing at all about which to be concerned within his party, that he has no reasons to take action. He's not seen or heard anything, which if you look back to the 4 green points at the bottom is him saying, well, the Prime Minister keeps on saying he hasn't heard or seen anything. Now watch me take actions and stuff to make sure that I don't see or hear anything, but I still want to convince you that I'm a serious leader and that I'm taking action. All right.
Well, let's get to the heart of the matter here, from Theo Moudakis. A 4-panel political cartoon. In the first panel, Pierre Poilievre screaming, "Release the names." In the second panel, Prime Minister Trudeau hands the top secret document over to Pierre Poilievre, saying, "Okay, here." Poilievre, being petulant as always, says, I need a security clearance for that. Right here, security clearance from the Trudeau government. And in the final panel, Pierre is screaming, Trudeau is playing politics. Now, I mean, that really sums it up.
Thanks.
It really, really sums it up.
Theomadakis for the win here.
Yeah.
Right? So we have, right now, the lay of the land is that we have a leader of the opposition essentially accusing the prime minister, who was under oath at the time, of committing perjury, in a statement in which he, the leader of the opposition, intentionally misrepresents at least two alternative information receiving contexts as equivalent to having received security clearance. This is next level Gable shit.
Oh, yeah.
All right? Now, I've started watching the Prime Minister's testimony. I got to about the first half. And then based on other reports, I will watch the rest. But the PM did spend significant time on the stand detailing things that he was able to do with the information. Because one of the things is one of the bullshit lines in there is that Pierre Poilievre has heard from the National Security Intelligence Advisor herself that he wouldn't be able to do anything with that information anyway or something without, right? And it's like, I'm not sure exactly what the words are in the statement Mr. Grizzly quoted off the top of my head here.
Which one was that? Sorry?
Sorry, it was in probably in the fourth paragraph here. Hold on, I have it here. He says, receiving a secret briefing would, according to Justin Trudeau's chief of staff, prevent a recipient from using, quote, the information in any manner, quote, and, quote, even where that is not the case, briefing political parties on sensitive intelligence regarding an MP could put the leader or representative of a political party in a tough position because any decision affecting the MP might have to be made without giving them due process. So, cannot be used in any matter. Now,
who are his advisors for this?
Well, no, but yes, but he's saying that Justin Trudeau, chief of staff, told him this.
Mm-hmm.
It can't be used in any manner in a public context.
Correct.
Choosing not to sign someone's nomination paper is a decision that only you need to know and know why. There is no public context. You can take action on that information. It's like public statement is not needed when you decide not to sign the nomination papers of a candidate who might be problematic. And as for not being able to speak, as we keep on saying, Miss May sure has had a lot to say. And so as Mr. Singh, Miss May came out again and said a couple of things that Dean said basically she just put Pierre in a body bag.
Yeah, she did.
So hopefully we'll be able to get to that. Now, later on, he says, well, since the Prime Minister blurted this information out on the stand, well, he's got to share it now. There's nothing holding him back now. But nothing was blurted.
Mm-hmm.
We showed the full clip yesterday. Yes. It wasn't like he was talking and oops. No. It came out, that's blurted. This was a conscious decision.
Exactly.
And all the stuff about partisanship, yes, again, we mentioned it, but the Prime Minister in that answer, if you remember, said, because this is going to be a little more partisanship than I had hoped to get it. So the Prime Minister admittedly was
right from the get-go
saying that I am aware that what I am going to say now is going to, right? So this is not blurted.
No.
This is definitely thought of. Because he didn't accidentally release the information and he did not stutter while he was saying it.
No.
Stating under oath that which can be responsibly be shared in no way obligates him to release top secret information publicly. One is not related to the other. Then, of course, he says Pierre's, well, let's say that the Prime Minister failed to act as Pierre is refusing to lift a finger to help. Again, and that doesn't hold given the reality that we have NSICOP and NSIRA because the Prime Minister created them, and he created them over the objections of the Conservative Party of Canada that did not want these bodies to exist. By the way, because that one, it goes to those 4 statements of irrelevant problem. These are behaviors that he is exhibiting himself as well that are manifesting in different ways, but as I mentioned, are utterly immaterial in every way to the points about Pierre signaling to interference agents around the world that he's willing to look the other way, and that he insists on not being equipped to protect the integrity of either his party or to defend his team or the nation. It's a big, lots of neon signs with arrows saying like this, like you want to do stuff over here and don't want anybody to know about it? Come here, come see me, because I certainly ain't gonna ask any questions. That's a very dangerous signal.
You think?
To be sending all around the world. All right, now let's go into the clip from the Prime Minister. There's a couple of things. There's a lot of things in there that are civics and that I'll maybe present to you in other contexts because I want to get to the meat of the stuff that's going on. This is the stuff that everybody's talking about at the moment, so we'll go to that for now. The whole first part of it, a lot of it has to do with some information flow, whatnot, and there's some very important civic stuff, right? There's stuff that the Conservatives refer to, for example, the China target paper there. And basically what happened with that is that there was a pre-final version of that that went to the National Security Intelligence advisor, and that person decided that the Prime Minister didn't need to see anything about it yet, one, because the document wasn't finalized. Right? And then when it was sent back to be finalized, no finalized version ever came.
Super Kyle coming in with a hot one.
So happy I was sitting down for today's show.
Off the top rope with the elbow.
Oh my God.
That's a good one, brother. That's a good one.
Every now and then, coming with your own chair comes in handy. Oh boy. Yeah. So that the final version of that paper, which would have, if there was anything in it that the National Security Intelligence Advisor determined the Prime Minister absolutely needed to see, that would have went up, never arrived, never came. The people that had started it, I guess, decided that they needed to abandon it because they found out something else. So when they're saying like the Prime Minister didn't see this thing, there's about like 75,000 pieces that are produced every year by Canada's intelligence community. Prime Minister cannot possibly see every one. There's a lot of triage that goes down. So unless it's something that he absolutely, and some of the things that he sees are not for action or for information only.
Right.
So if a province makes a decision that goes ahead with something, or minister makes a decision that will impact, says, your minister made this decision, this will impact on this way, you should know about this. Because he doesn't need to approve that, but he does need to make it aware if he's going into like meetings that it happened, right? So it's not all actionable advice. A lot of it is for your information, not necessarily for your input or for your decision. Information comes in from various stuff. So there's a whole section on that that's very good on civics. But Mr. Grizzly, let's go right to the meat of it, talking about stuff going on with regards to India. So this would be at 1 hour.
1 hour? It's a 32-minute clip.
No, the other one.
Which other one?
There should be one I sent you about the Prime Minister's testimony itself.
Hang on a second here. Let me just double check.
Because the second part of the Power and Politics clip is just a panel discussion. All right, and I'll keep it chatting while you do that. I'll also make sure that in my email that I actually did send it to you while I'm doing it.
No, you didn't send it to me. I don't have it.
Don't have that one?
No, I do not have that one. The only clip I have is the one that we have been looking at, and that is 30. That's it. Yeah, I don't have any other clip.
Oh, okay.
You may have forgot to send it to me. Entirely possible that happened.
Oh yeah, it is. I did write PM's testimony, but I actually did not include the actual clip.
Yeah, see, there we go. That's
All right. So while I am looking for that, let's have a little palate cleanser because Brittle Star has a little something for us.
I think we'll enjoy this. I know I did. Here we go.
Are you the leader of a federal political party in Canada? Have you or members of your party been accused of being wittingly or unwittingly involved in foreign interference? Have you been demanding the release of the names of those involved? And now you've kind of painted yourself into a corner. Relax. Now there's a solution. Release Away by Security Clearance. One easy, for some, application, and you'll be privy to all of the national security information you need to release the names yourself, on your terms. Release Away is perfect for those who wish to be Prime Minister. Actually, it's kind of essential. Release Away is ideal for when you've run out of excuses and it seems pretty apparent that you're more focused on protecting your own interests instead of Canada's. Release Away side effects may include bluff calling, nonpartisan shit-hitting fanness, actual benefit to Canada, and nausea. Want to release the names? Release Away.
I thought
Are you
that
the
was
leader
pretty
of a
brilliant.
Did the first end of it, the first bit of it, get cut off?
No. That's right
okay.
from Brittle Star's feed.
Okay.
Yeah, it was right from his feed.
Okay. It seemed to have started mid-sentence. All right. I have the thing here. Sorry, I'm going to have to move that camera. There we go.
Yeah, no. Here, this is a good one. Putin, Canada first. Make Canada great again. Pierre Poilievre. And it's
All right.
Putin, P-U-T-I-N. Putin, Canada first. Okay, I thought that was
There
good.
we go, Mr. Beasley. I've got the clip there. I am sending it to you right now. It should be arriving in just a couple of seconds. There you go. So, I don't know how you call. I don't think you call her the prosecutor because it's not a criminal case, but the lead questioner.
Mhm.
Put it that way, for the inquiry, who, if you've been following the show for a while, you'll recognize because we've seen her
You
before.
want this at the, what's the mark?
1 minute, 26 and 4 seconds.
1 minute, 26. So I thought you said 1 hour.
Sorry, 1 hour, 26 minutes and 4 seconds.
Okay,
So,
wow.
yes. Sorry. You've seen her before, and she's very, very, very good at her job. I've had no notes, no criticisms. She's asking the questions that need to be asked, and giving the leeway and the room for the Prime Minister to do politics and to answer in full and complete sentences.
So the first question I'll ask you to take us through, Prime Minister, is what led to your announcement in the House of Commons in September 2023?
Over the course of the summer, I was apprised by my intelligence services that there was credible intelligence that agents of the government of India were involved in the killing of Hardeep Singh Nijjar. This is something that we had actually asked the intelligence agencies to look into because following the rather high-profile killing months before, the initial assessment was, oh, this was gang-related or criminal-related. There was not an obvious, immediate international nexus to this. And that's how we were briefed after the meeting, after the killing in the days afterwards. However, hearing directly from a number of our South Asian members of parliament and seeing and talking with members of the South Asian community around who were quite insistent that it was something that was likely connected to government of India. We actually asked the intelligence agencies, and it turned out they were doing this anyway, to look in more closely to the circumstances around this particular murder. So in late July, early August, I was briefed on the fact that there was intelligence from Canada and possibly from Five Eyes allies that made it fairly clear, incredibly clear, that India was involved in this killing. Agents of the government of India were involved in the killing of a Canadian on Canadian soil. This was something that we obviously had to take extremely seriously. That violation of sovereignty, of the international rule of law, with extrajudicial killing in a foreign country, in a fellow democracy, was a massive mistake if India had indeed done it, and we had reasons to believe that they had. So our immediate approach was to engage with the government of India to say, and we had our various security officials reach out to India and say, look, there are real concerns that your security agencies were involved in the killing of Nijar. We need to work on this together because that can't stand. We need to make sure that there are changes and there's accountability for this process, but let's try and do it in a responsible way that doesn't come and blow up the relationship between Canada and India. And that was the attempts we made in the month of August. As we approached the end of August and September, the big thing that was happening was India was itself hosting the leader of the summit of the advanced economies of the world, the G20. So it was a big moment for India, welcoming the world, all the leaders of the world to Delhi for a very important summit. And we had the opportunity of making it a very uncomfortable summit for India if we went public with these allegations ahead of time. We chose not to. We chose to continue to work behind the scenes to try and get India to cooperate with us. Their asks of us was, well, how much do you know? Give us the evidence you have on this. And our response was, well, it's within your security agencies. You should be looking into how much they know. You should be engaging. It's, oh, no, tell us what you know. Show us the evidence. And at that point, it was primarily intelligence, not hard evidentiary proof. So we said, well, let's work together and look into your security services and maybe we can get that done. No, we're not doing that. It culminated with a conversation I had with Prime Minister Modi on after the end of the last session at the G20 in Delhi, where I sat down and shared that we knew that they were involved and expressed a real concern around it. He responded with the usual response from him, which is that we have people who are outspoken against the Indian government living in Canada that he would like to see arrested. And I tried to explain that freedom of speech and freedom of people who come to our country to be Canadians to criticize governments overseas is, or indeed to criticize the Canadian government, is a fundamental freedom of Canada. But as always, we would work with them on any evidence or any concerns they have around terrorism or incitement to hate or anything that is patently unacceptable in Canada. And we have taken action in the past. We continue to take action. Even as I emphasize, and I have emphasized regularly, my position and Canada's position is to defend the territorial integrity of India. One India is official Canadian policy. And the fact that there are a number of people in Canada who advocate otherwise does not make it Canadian policy, but also does not make it, is not something that is illegal in Canada.
I think that is the first time I've ever heard a member of the Canadian government said one India is a policy we believe in.
Yeah.
I've not heard that before.
Neither
but
have
it
I.
makes sense, right? It's like, yes, one India, none of the separatist factions that we know about. They do exist. Khalistan. I thought that's the first time I've heard that from a Canadian politician, and being the Prime Minister sworn under oath. Interesting time to say it, but nevertheless, there you are. We'll continue.
Having done all that, we returned to Canada, and it was obvious that the Indian government response, particularly through the media, was to instead attack Canada, to attack Canadians, to criticize us, to undermine our government and our governance, and quite frankly, the integrity of our democracy. Combined with the fact that as we approached the end of September, it looked like there was going to be media stories detailing some of these allegations that were getting out there. When on the first day that the House returned, we determined that it was in the interest of public safety in Canada to let people know that we knew about these allegations, that we were following up on them. There was an investigation into them that was taken on by police services in Canada to ensure that, partially to ensure that nobody in Canada and any communities felt like they needed to take action themselves, that they should trust Canadian institutions to take this threat seriously and follow up on it. And that's exactly what we then did. We launched investigations. The Indian response to these allegations and to our investigations was to double down on attacks against this government, attacks against this government's integrity, attacks against Canada in general, but also to arbitrarily eject dozens of diplomats from Canada, from Canadian diplomats from India, on absolutely no cause other than to say, well, we don't like what you said in the House about us, and we're going to punish you for that. This was a situation in which we had clear, and certainly now even clearer, indications that India had violated Canada's sovereignty, and their response was to double down and attack Canada further rather than take responsibility or say, how can we fix this? Yes, this was a violation of the rule of law, and even take any of the many off-ramps we offered, because we don't want to be in this situation of picking a fight with a significant trading partner with whom we have deep people-to-people ties and a long history and our fellow democracies. But standing up unequivocally for Canadian sovereignty and for the safety of Canadians back then was essential, and absolutely led to the very, very clear pronouncements we made earlier this week that the RCMP, the conclusions and the evidence that the RCMP determined in terms of violence towards Canadians that has been enabled by and directed by, in many cases, the Indian government.
So you've made reference.
You can see how much more of an elder statesman he has become, how he is able to communicate much better than he was as little as 3 years ago, 4 years ago. He doesn't have any notes in front of him. He's showing us glimpses of his father in this respect, able to speak off the cuff, forming full, complete sentences, thoughtful sentences, because this is his job. And he's gotten to be really good at it. And he hasn't been doing it for 20 years.
Right.
Right?
No. Sorry, go ahead.
That's it. That's all I had to say.
So you will see if you've been following this show, this is the Prime Minister pretty much, and now it's from his under oath and from his own mouth, that I think you might be on mute, Mr. Grizzly.
No, I'm not on mute.
Oh, okay. I saw your lips moving, but I didn't hear anything coming out. The thing that we have been saying on the show is being confirmed now, that the Prime Minister got the information, handled everything according to how it should be handled, according to typical diplomatic protocols, brought the issue to Modi. Can we work this together? Let's not air any dirty laundry out in public. Let's not have an incident. Let's not have that. But India seemed to really want us bad.
Yes, and this is the thing. And let's remember and let's not forget. I know that's the same thing, but I like to view it that way and speak it that way sometimes, that the large swath of Canadian media, print media in this country, which is owned by Chatham Asset Management, which is a GOP, I won't say owned, but a hedge fund, which is GOP, heavily GOP right-wing influenced, repeated the bullshit line that there was cocaine on his plane.
Yeah.
Like, they just put it out there like some child on Twitter would.
Oh, yeah.
Which is mind-blowing to me. Nothing in there, not a single word of that was true. There was no corroborating evidence. It was just the Indian government said that, which was interesting because the Indian government had no access to the aircraft. And there were reporters that were on the aircraft who came out and said, this is absolute bollocks. This is not true. Why are you regurgitating talking points from Modi? Because Modi's got a little bit of egg on his face for what he just did.
But the news is India said. The news is what India said true, right? This India said. We reporting that India said. Come on, man.
Yeah.
Come on. So, but you see, the Prime Minister mentioned and India's response was to go on the offensive and attack and all that kind of stuff. So basically, when you have people from Canada, or you have the government of India saying, he didn't have to do it this way, or he's trying to cause us embarrassment, whatnot, or he's doing this because he's got some political stuff at home. No, because before anything went public, all those other steps took place. Before the Prime Minister came out this time, there was a meeting, a pull-aside, at a meeting at which the Prime Minister and the ASEAN summit, at which they were both present. Mm-hmm. And once again, Modi sent the Prime Minister back in. So now we got this. I mean, yeah. It's right there. Let's continue on for the next clip. So that gives you, from the Prime Minister's mouth, everything that happened in the order that it happened and how it is that we got to this point. Right. So now you know the story, the actual story. The next clip, these are the only ones I'm going to be taking from the testimony for today. Has a little bit about what it is that someone can do with the information, the stuff that Pierre Poilievre said in his statement, said you couldn't do anything with it anyway.
And directed by, in many cases, the Indian government.
So you've made reference to the allegations that were the announcement of the RCMP earlier this week, and we know that that wasn't solely connected to the Najjar investigation per se. It's a broader thing than that, and it involves allegations of interference by India in promotion of violent extremism, tying agents of the government of India to homicides, violent acts, the use of organized crime, and interference into democratic processes. So it's a much wider thing. And we know that it led to, over the past weekend, the PNGing of 6 Indian diplomats. What can you say? And you mentioned before that the hope was not to blow up the relationship with India after the Najar murder. Obviously, things have progressed since then. What comment are you able to offer on what the RCMP announced on Monday and where things stand at the moment?
So just before he answers this, I want to make the comment of, I would love, absolutely love, I mean this when I say this, I would love to see Pierre Poilievre on the stand for his response to a question like that.
Yeah, exactly. And just for those who are wondering, PNG means persona non grata.
Mm-hmm. Not Pacific North and Gas, which was the company that got sued into oblivion in California. I would love to see Pierre Poilievre undergoing a grilling like this. I mean,
Yes.
the man can't accept questions from reporters. What's he going to do when he has to take the stand? Oh, I know that's not. I'm giving you the answer I want to give you. No, that's not how it works, asshole. Oh, this is just, it's really getting good. I'll continue. We'll continue.
The decision by the RCMP to go forward with that announcement was entirely anchored in public safety and a goal of disrupting the chain of activities that was resulting in drive-by shootings, home invasions, and violent extortion and even murder in and across Canada, particularly in the South Asian community. Largely Sikh, but not exclusively the Sikh community. The goal of disrupting the chain that was diplomats collecting information on Canadians who are opponents or in disagreement with the Modi government, passing along that information to the highest levels within the Indian government, and then having that information directed through criminal organizations like the Lawrence Bishnoi Gang to then result in violence against Canadians on the ground. It was the RCMP's determination that that chain or that sequence, or that scheme, needed to be disrupted, and going public on Monday as they did, and removing those diplomats. The first option was actually being able to question those diplomats and interview those diplomats by having them waive diplomatic immunity. They didn't. That's not surprising that they didn't. Canada wouldn't waive diplomatic immunity in many cases either. But therefore we had to ask them to leave the country.
Okay. And just to be clear, when you speak of diplomats collecting information in this instance, we're not talking about research and Google searches. We're talking about covert, clandestine.
Covert, clandestine, coercive measures, threatening to withhold family visas, paying sources, a range of things that the RCMP can detail if they feel they are. I mean, one of the important things on this is these are ongoing. There are ongoing court cases and trials. So if the RCMP had its druthers, it wouldn't have revealed any of this. It's just that it hit the threshold before it came out naturally in court through our judicial process, as it would, as much of this will. But the threat to public safety and the need to disrupt preemptively, even before the court cases were fully adjudicated, were made it the RCMP's decision to go public with this.
Okay. Well, as you mentioned, there are ongoing investigations, and in that sense, I think we've probably gone as far as we can go on that topic, so we'll move on. We can take the...
How's that for an answer?
Oh, yeah.
There are things that you can do. There are things that he has done.
Mm-hmm.
These are things that Pierre Poilievre could also do if he had the information. But he chooses not to. Again, he refuses to protect the integrity of his own damn party.
Exactly. Well, as I've said time and time again, and as you have also said, and many other pundits and commentators around the country have said, there is no one he won't throw under the bus to save himself.
Well, yes. And if I was Pierre Poilievre's chief of staff right now, if his chief of staff happens to be the same chief of staff that was in office around that time, I would be handing my letter of resignation ASAP because I'm getting a of Michael Sona.
Yeah. Yeah.
Looks like someone's trying to set up a patsy.
Mm-hmm. Get out while the getting's good.
The call's coming inside the house. Run!
Run.
Run! It's like Dave Chappelle. Run, bitch, run! Oh, dude. The leader of your party put in a public statement. My chief of staff never gave me this information, so I assume there's nothing wrong when there is no possible way that you would ever be included in this information unless it was something so specific and that you needed to know that the intelligence community would bring it to the prime minister and the prime minister would say, yes, the chief of staff needs to know this. That is the only way. That 1 in a billion situation in which all those preconditions would be needed for the prime minister to say, yeah, the chief of staff of an opposition party does need to know this information, would be the only way a chief of staff has that information. And Pierre Poilievre turns around and says, my chief of staff never told me about anything, so there was a run. You are being set up.
You are the fall guy.
Holy. That little bit of testimony from the prime minister yesterday made the whole things very clear. Very clear. Pierre doesn't care. He will throw anybody under the wheels of that Harper bus, just like Harper.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, absolutely.
Remember Raheem Jaffer and Helena Georges?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They got it. They got it.
Yeah.
It was like they're again, as we keep on saying, like the mafia, but without the loyalty.
Mm-hmm.
It's just woo! Oh boy. Now, here's the plot twist that I promised you, kids and cubs. On October 14th, I believe it is, which was the same day that the RCMP released that information in the United States. It was, old school Columbus Day, new school Indigenous Peoples Day.
Mm-hmm.
And the State Department released this. Visit by the Indian Inquiry Committee to the United States of America. Media note, Office of the Spokesperson. An Indian Inquiry Committee that was established to investigate activities of certain organized criminals is actively investigating the individual who was identified last year in the Department of Justice's indictment as an Indian government employee who directed a foiled plot to assassinate a U.S. citizen in New York City. The Inquiry Committee will be traveling to Washington, D.C. on October 15th as part of their ongoing investigations to discuss the case, including information they have obtained, and to receive an update from U.S. authorities regarding the U.S. case that is proceeding. Additionally, India has informed the United States they are continuing their efforts to investigate other linkages of the former government employee and will determine follow-up steps as necessary. So that meeting happened on the 15th. And then yesterday, the Office of Public Affairs of the U.S. Department of Justice released this press release. Now, this press release was released Thursday the 17th after Pierre issued his statement. Vikash Yadav directed plot to murder US-based leader of Sikh separatist movement. The Justice Department today announced the filing of murder for hire and money laundering charges against Indian government employee Vikash Yadav, 39, also known as Vikas, and Amanat, in connection with his role in directing a foiled plot to assassinate a US citizen in New York City. Yadav is charged in a second superseding indictment unsealed today in the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of New York. Yadav's alleged co-conspirator, Nikhil Gupta, 53, was previously charged and extradited to the United States on the charges contained in the first superseding indictment. Yadav remains at large. Quote, "The Justice Department will be relentless in holding accountable any person, regardless of their position or proximity to power, who seeks to harm and silence American citizens," said Attorney General Merrick B. Garland. Quote, "As alleged last year, we foiled an attempt by Vikash Yadav, an Indian government employee, and his co-conspirator Nikhil Gupta to assassinate an American citizen on U.S. soil. Today's charges demonstrate that the Justice Department will not tolerate attempts to target and endanger Americans and to undermine the rights to which every U.S. citizen is entitled. The defendant, an Indian government employee, allegedly conspired with a criminal associate and attempted to assassinate a U.S. citizen on American soil for exercising their First Amendment rights," said FBI Director Christopher Wray. The FBI will not tolerate acts of violence or other efforts to retaliate against those residing in the U.S. for exercising their constitutionally protected rights. We are committed to working with our partners to detect, disrupt, and hold accountable foreign nationals or others who seek to engage in such acts of transnational repression. And just a little aside here, remember that the Indian government has a problem with the Khalistani movement specifically, and they consider it a threat, a terrorist organization, and that any talk of Khalistani independence in any way, shape, or form is a threat to national security. In Canada, those things are not crimes. We have a Parti Québécois, we have a Bloc Québécois, we have a movement. You have the right in Canada as a Canadian citizen to advocate for independence in a state somewhere else or with among even a portion of Canada. So India is upset that Canada is not imposing India law in Canada. A bit like China was getting to us to try to impose China law in Canada with regard to Meng Wanzhou.
Right.
And our ability to extradite them. Whenever we make an accusation against China, they get all huffy and touchy and start counterattacking and then bringing up other stuff that's going on in our country to try and embarrass. India is following the exact same playbook here with regard to this. Continuing on, this is Assistant Attorney General Matthew G. Olson of the Justice Department's National Security Division. Today's charges are a grave example of the increase in lethal plotting and other forms of violent transnational repression targeting diaspora communities in the United States. To the governments around the world who may be considering such criminal activity and to the communities they would target, let there be no doubt that the Department of Justice is committed to disrupting and exposing these plots and to holding the wrongful actors accountable no matter who they are or where they reside. DEA foiled this assassination attempt last year and has continued to trace this case back to an employee of the Indian government whom we charge as an orchestrator of this intricate murder for hire scheme. DEA did not relent, and today's indictment names Vikash Yadav as an alleged mastermind, said Administrator Ann Milgram of the Drug Enforcement Administration. We charge that Yadav, an employee of the Indian government, used his position of authority and access to confidential information to direct the attempted assassination of an outspoken critic of the Indian government here on U.S. soil. This case was led by the DEA, New York's Division Drug Enforcement Task Force, which is comprised of DEA, the New York State Police, and New York City Police Department, and is a true testament to the tenacity and determination of our team. This quote here from U.S. Attorney Damian Williams. Last year, this office charged Nikhil Gupta for conspiring to assassinate a U.S. citizen of Indian origin on U.S. soil. But as alleged, Gupta did not work alone. Today, we announced charges against an Indian government employee, Vikash Yadav, who orchestrated the plot from India and directed Gupta to hire a hitman to murder the victim. The right to exercise free speech is foundational to our democracy and predicated on the notion that we can do so without fear of violence or reprisal, including from beyond our borders. Let this case be a warning to all those who would seek to harm and silence U.S. citizens. We will hold you accountable no matter who and where you are. As alleged in the second superseding indictment and other public court documents in 2023, Yadav, working together with others, including Gupta in India and elsewhere, directed a plot to assassinate on U.S. soil an attorney and political activist who is a U.S. citizen of Indian origin residing in New York City. Hence, and heretofore afterwards referred to as the victim in the statement. The victim is a vocal critic of the Indian government and leads a US-based organization that advocates for the secession of Punjab, a state in northern India that is home to a large population of Sikhs, an ethno-religious minority group in India. The victim has publicly called for some or all of Punjab to secede from India and establish a Sikh sovereign state called Khalistan, and the Indian government has banned the victim and his separatist organization from India. During times relevant to the second superseding indictment, Yadav was employed by the Government of India's Cabinet Secretariat, which houses India's Foreign Intelligence Service, the research and analysis wing. Yadav had described his position as a, quote, senior field officer with responsibilities in, quote, security management and, quote, intelligence. Yadav has also referenced previously serving in India's Central Reserve Police Force and receiving, quote, officer training in, quote, battlecraft and, quote, weapons. Yadav is a citizen and resident of India, and he directed the plot to assassinate the victim from India. In or about May 2023, Yadav recruited Gupta to orchestrate the assassination of the victim in the United States. Gupta is an Indian national who resided in India and has described his involvement in international narcotics and weapons trafficking in his communications with Yadav and others. At Yadav's direction, Gupta contacted an individual whom Gupta believed to be a criminal associate, but who was in fact a confidential source, and will be referred to as the CS, working with the DEA for assistance in contracting a hitman to murder the victim in New York City. The CS introduced Gupta to a purported hitman who was in fact a DEA undercover officer, the UC. He will be referred to, or she will be referred to from now on. Yadav subsequently agreed in dealings brokered by Gupta to pay the UC $100,000 to murder the victim. On or about June 9, 2023, Yadav and Gupta arranged for an associate to deliver $15,000 in cash to the UC as an advanced payment for the murder. Yadav's associate then delivered the $15,000 to the UC in Manhattan. So money had actually been transferred by wire and actually delivered to the undercover officer.
Yeah.
$15,000 on $100,000. In or about June 2023, in furtherance of the assassination plot, Yadav provided Gupta with personal information about the victim, including the victim's home address in New York City, phone numbers associated with the victim, and details about the victim's day-to-day conduct. This is the type of information that the Prime Minister was saying that was obtained through either coercive or surveillance means, not just stuff that you would see just on a public site that you could find if you were doing opposition research. But this is monitoring people, entailing them, this type of stuff. These are big no-nos. And this information Gupta then passed to the UC. Yadav directed Gupta to provide regular updates on the progress of the assassination plot, which Gupta accomplished by forwarding to Yadav, among other things, surveillance photographs of the victim. Gupta directed the UC to carry out the murder as soon as possible, but Gupta also specifically instructed the UC not to commit the murder around the time of the Indian Prime Minister's official state visit to the United States, which was scheduled to begin on or about June 20th, 2023. And this is where we come in, kids and cubs. On or about June 18th, 2023, approximately 2 days before the Indian Prime Minister's state visit to the United States, masked gunmen murdered Hardeep Singh Nijjar outside a Sikh temple in British Columbia, Canada. Nijar was an associate of the victim and, like the victim, was a leader of the Sikh separatist movement and an outspoken critic of the Indian government. On or about June 19th, 2023, the day after the Nijar murder, Gupta told the UC that Nijar, quote, was also the target and, quote, we have so many targets. Gupta added that in light of Nijar's murder, there was, quote, now no need to wait on killing the victim. On or about June 20th, 2023, Yadav sent Gupta a news article about the victim and messaged Gupta, quote, it's a priority now. So do not attempt to murder the victim around the time of the Prime Minister of India's official state visit to the United States on or about June 20th, 2023. Okay, we can't do this, so let's get the Canadian guy 2 days before. When the guy said, take care of it ASAP, they weren't kidding, because after the 18th, say, hey, now there's no longer any need to wait. Now, I don't know how the ins and outs work in India, but it seems that the people that were organizing this didn't necessarily care too much how these events would affect Prime Minister Modi. Because if they say, please don't do it around the time of his visit, okay, we'll do it only in the nation above, related to the plot here, that shares a border and is the nation that we don't want to embarrass while we're here as the best friend and most trusted ally. Again, when we talk about like wanting to sit, if we're again, as Bo the Fifth column calls it, the international poker table where everybody's cheating, and India wants to sit at the high rollers table. There's a couple of things in the thought process that lead them to think that, hey, okay, if we don't do it in the United States, but we'll do it in Canada and everything should be fine.
Mm-hmm.
That, yeah, they didn't think through. Yadav and Gupta of India have been, Yadav and Gupta of India have been charged with murder for hire, which carries a maximum penalty of 10 years in prison, conspiracy to commit murder for hire, which carries a maximum penalty of 10 years in prison, and conspiracy to commit money laundering, which carries a maximum penalty of 20 years in prison. Huh. How odd that laundering money gets you more time in prison than conspiracy to commit murder for hire. Priorities? A federal district court judge will determine any sentence after considering the U.S. sentencing guidelines and other statutory factors. So, Polyev comes out and makes the statement that the Prime Minister's lying.
Mm-hmm.
And shortly after, the government of the United States, the Department of Justice, comes up with yet another indictment. Hey, Pierre. Walls closing in. Feeling like the floor that you're standing on may have a little trapdoor that's about to give way. Air in the box starting to get thin. See, it's a good thing it's Friday. I guess you're going to have the whole weekend to try to figure out how you're going to respond to this. And at some point, even though you are hiding, sir, you are going to have to face the media at some point for something. And I know your go-to play is to start attacking the journalists, asking where they're from, and then trying to ask the questions instead. And I don't think this is going to work out for you this time around.
Nope.
4 of the 5 federal party leaders either have or are in the process of obtaining their security clearance. You are the cheese who stands alone. Relevant people and all 5 eyes, nations, our allies, have come out to back the Prime Minister. 2 of the other 4 have actually outright encouraged India to participate, to cooperate in the Canadian investigation. And after you accusing the Prime Minister of having committed perjury on the stand and misrepresenting as equivalent to alternative methods of receiving information that you claim actually exist and would give you equivalent information as actually getting off your ass and doing your damn job. Right? The United States releases a second indictment. At some point, all your friends in the media in Canada will not be able to avoid not asking you questions because you got the Green Party leader putting you in a body bag with her statements. You got Mr. Singh saying that you should get your clearance, but inexplicably saying that names should be released. Still do not understand that. You've got a new indictment from the United States that actually mentions the case that happened here in it. Links the cases. Pee-pee, you got some splaining to do.
Oh, yeah.
Tick-tock, Father Mucker. I hope you enjoy the weekend and come up with something good. Because I don't think you can hide for a whole other week. I mean, I guess you can try. But the longer you wait, the worse it gets. Drip. 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 Oh, man. This... Pass the popcorn, man. It's going to be good. It's going to be good. You know what? Was the Prime Minister partisan? Fuck yeah.
That's to be expected.
All right.
Especially in that particular situation, that's to be expected. I'm not surprised. And he admittedly said that's more partisan than I wish to be.
Yes. But there's a kid who watches the show, Kit Lisa, made a comment yesterday, and I hadn't considered it under that angle. But it's Pierre Poilievre sure has been acting rather confidently, like he has a sense that he could not get this security clearance and that there would be no consequences or repercussions to him for not getting them. Now, I'm not sure if this is just a bad judgment decision on his own or whether or not he received input from other people, perhaps a former boss.
I don't know what input he's getting, but...
that he would be able to avoid all... He would be able to go into the next election, not to get a security clearance, not know, and that there would ultimately be no consequence. But for a very long time, he has been acting like he's feeling very, 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 very safe and secure in the knowledge there would be no consequence. That is something I, too, would be asking questions about. Because with this latest indictment and the other 4 nations in our Five Eyes Alliance stepping up, that is no longer the case.
And I don't know if you have seen this next clip I'm about to show you. It's not a perfect clip. It's from Power and Politics with David Cochrane. It was somebody who filmed it on their phone when it was on the TV. So there's a little echoey issues here, but it's featuring somebody we've spoken about recently, and I think it's interesting what she has to say.
No, and I don't expect Pierre Poilievre to listen to what the Prime Minister has to say on this, or listen to what Jagmeet Singh has to say on this, or indeed what Dick Fadden has to say on this. But what I do expect him to do is listen to his own base. And what's remarkable is 60% of Conservative voters, the last time we asked about this, said, yes, all leaders, let's underline that, all of them, including Pierre Poilievre, should take the security clearance, should be briefed, should read into the reports that are available to them once they have received their security clearance. So he's not even listening to his own supporters on this issue who are equally as seized by what's been happening as the rest of us. The calculation there must be that he doesn't think this is something that's going to move votes one way or the other. He clearly does not see this politically as a liability for him, but I think that's folly. And frankly, I think he should grow up, get the security clearance, and find out what he needs to find out.
Sachi Curl from Angus Reid is making that statement, and I thought that was pretty fascinating.
Another plot twist.
Yeah. Didn't see that coming, did you?
Didn't see that. No, I did not. Oh, I'm glad you featured that. Now, before we go, kids and cubs, I was able to bring it up while Mr. Grizzly played that clip. He gave me an opportunity to look it up. This is, since we've been talking about it, the body bag into which Ms. Elizabeth May just very delicately deposed Mr. Poilievre. I read with alarm the statement released by Mr. Poilievre on October 16. Quote, my message to Justin Trudeau is release the names of all MPs that have collaborated with foreign interference. Now, remember that Miss May is a lawyer. It may very well be that because he has refused to undertake the process of obtaining top secret security clearance, he is unaware that he is asking the Prime Minister violates. Sorry, let me try that again. It may well be. Take three. It may well be that because he has refused to undertake the process of obtaining top secret security clearance, he is unaware that he is asking the Prime Minister that the Prime Minister violates the Foreign Interference and Security of Information Act. I was clearly informed by Canada's security agencies that elements of what I read in the unredacted report of the National Security and Intelligence Committee of Parliamentarians could not be shared at all without placing at risk Canada's intelligence gathering. In fact, even details such as the precise number of MPs who fell into the category of, quote, witting or semi-witting potential or current actors of foreign interference could place the Canadian Security Intelligence Service at risk. Put bluntly, it could endanger people's lives. Mr. Poilievre's choice to remain in ignorance of security and intelligence is more than troubling. The public version of the NSICOP report referenced allegations of foreign interference in the Conservative Party's leadership race, specifically in reference to India at paragraph 73. And then what's in the redacted report. This paragraph was deleted to remove injurious or privileged information. The paragraph described India's alleged interference in a Conservative Party of Canada leadership race. The only way for Canadians to know that the official opposition has not been compromised through foreign interference is for its leader to seek and obtain top secret security clearance. I have urged him to do so since June 2024. With greater urgency, I urge him to do so now. Pierre Poilievre is the only person in a position to clear the air about the Conservative Party and any potential favors owed to foreign interests.
That's a body bag.
Yeah. And the whole first part of it, about her being clearly informed by Canada's security agencies that elements of what she read in the unredacted report, this could not be shared at all without placing at risk Canada's intelligence gathering. That also applies to Mr. Singh.
Mm-hmm.
The second part of it applies to Pierre specifically, but the first half of this applies to both of them, given that Singh came out and said release the names. Oh, Liz. You make me so happy on certain days.
I have
all
one
right.
quick thing to share with you, and then we can wrap up, because I think this is cute. This is from a gentleman who I do follow him, Tom Whitaker. I don't know if you're familiar with him. I'm going to put this on the screen because I think this sums it up really nicely. So the tweet from CTV News: Indian government employee charged in foil murder for hire plot in New York City. Tom Whitaker, how long before Pierre Poilievre issues a statement that the FBI are wrong?
Right.
I mean, he just accused the Prime Minister of lying about a document that he's never read. I mean, come on.
Do we have a show, Mr. Grizzly?
We do indeed.
All right, Kids Cubs, that's the end of this episode of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. We hope that you love listening to us because we love making this for you. I got a particular kick out of this one. I have to say. Remember, kids and cubs, that sharing is caring and word of mouth is priceless. So please tell your peeps and poops all about us. If you would like to make sure that you do not miss an episode, you don't have to. Thanks to the Ray Girl. She's fly, she's fun, she's fabulous. And she sponsors our pod page. So if you scan that QR code that just appeared, that will bring you right there. And if you're listening, it's podpage.com. True North Eager Beaver, so podpage.com/True North Eager, the True North Eager Beaver, lowercase letters with a hyphen between each one of those words. And if you go there and click on subscribe when we have something fresh off the bandwidth, it comes directly to you. Now, if you'd like to support us in other ways, then you need to make like Elaine and surf yourself on down to the True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated YouTube page, where you will find our buttons like, share, and subscribe. Click 1, click 2, click 3. It's free. It's free to click. It helps us out a lot, and you get our undying gratitude. Now, if you want to support us even more, like, for example, making a little bit of a financial contribution to keep the Beaver Lodge going because you like our product and you wish to encourage us to do more, and you found this episode particularly insightful, well then, the QR code that's by Mr. Grizzly's head right there will bring you to our tip jar. And you can find that at our coffee page. That's coffee, ko-fi.com/eagerbeaver, lowercase letters, all in one word. We appreciate absolutely anything that you can donate. Oh, I see that somebody scanned. Thank you so very much. It does mean the world to us when you do send us that type of support. But what even means more to us, kids and cubs, is that you give us the gift of your presence and attention. And we cherish that so much that we want to hear from you. So if you would like to write to us, truenortheagerbeaver@gmail.com is our email address. Or you can communicate with us on our Twitter feed @TrueEager, our Facebook page, True North Eager Beaver. Or if you're listening on YouTube, you can leave some comments under the show. We do try to read everything, and we appreciate all of your input. Now, because democracy is something that you do, kids and cubs. Oh boy, it's election time. We are the 18th, so tomorrow will be the election day, voting day in British Columbia. So far, it's looking from the polls that the NDP might squeak this one out, but it is still very close. So please make sure you make a plan to vote. The hour is a little late, but I know that the time difference with BC for you guys it'll be different because the polls close, I believe, at 8 p.m. I am thinking about doing a results watch show. I'm not sure if Mr. Grizzly will want to be up at that hour because it might start at midnight our time. But I am thinking about it. But I will confirm it. So keep posted, and I'll see if I can get Mr. Kretzman to come on and join a little bit as well, if he's able to. But not confirmed because that will be late. It would be a late night for me as well here in the time zone. But I would be home and available to do it. So keep posted, and there might be something on that. Also, remember tonight, I believe it's the debut in the new time slot of Foxy Fridays.
That is correct.
There we go. So please take some time to support Mademoiselle Fox and tune in to the show. I'm sure that she has some wonderful stuff prepared for you. Tomorrow is also Kit Dan's birthday. Hey, buddy, happy birthday. Hope it's as fabulous as you are. And if you happen to be living in the town of Lockport, there is, I believe, a municipal election, and there's a Kit doing democracy there, Kit Saucy. So hopefully when we come back on air on Monday, we'll be reporting about town councillor Kit Saucy.
This is the hope. This is the hope.
Yes, hope the vote goes well. That's on the 19th. And when we are back, I believe, on the 21st, it will be Mateo's birthday. And Ms. Shadika, I saw something in there saying that Mateo would like to come on the day before he goes to school. We would be delighted
Absolutely.
to say hello and to wish him happy birthday on his birthday. So, yes, please, please, please do. All right. That's my democracy, something that you do, and a little bit of news updates there. Oh, also, sorry, one very little quick thing. You'll be hearing a lot about it, but we didn't talk about it today. 4 ministers from the Trudeau cabinet have decided that they are not running again. I believe Agriculture Minister Marie-Claude Bibeau, Northern Affairs Minister Dan Van Daal, one of the ministers, I think, for economic development in Ontario, Philomena Tassi. She is leaving because her husband had some health issues following a stroke. And I believe Marie-Claude Bibeau is leaving to run for the position of mayor of Sherbrooke. And then the last one is Minister Carla Qualtrough, who brought us the disability support thing that ended up being a big disappointment, because the stated objective was to ensure that people in the community would not be living below
poverty
line, and that didn't come anywhere near close to happening. So I have a feeling she might have thought that her chances were not as great this time around. Now, they are 4 lower level cabinet ministers with not a lot of public profiles, so a lot of people are, will look at this as rats, the thing, right? Rats leaving the sinking ship. Could be that. A lot of them have been around since, a few of them have been around since 2015. I think all 4 of them actually have been around since 2015 as MPs. Tassi has not been a minister since then, but I think the other 3 have been. So, I mean, they've got 9 years in as well, which might be a good natural time to get out. So I wouldn't read necessarily anything into it specifically, but it also could be a sign, maybe if they weren't, the Liberals weren't behind by 20, maybe some of these people, I don't think it would be the case where Tassi or Bibeau might be running again. Who knows? We don't know, but that's going on. All right, Mr. Grizzly, do you have some words of wisdom?
Not so much words of wisdom, but just questioning reality sometimes. And this is one of those times. You know that currently in the province of Ontario, we're running the largest deficit in history by the fiscally responsible Progressive Conservative Party run by Doug Ford, correct?
Yeah.
So I got to show you this, because this is from the Toronto Star, and this is just flabbergasting to say the least. Stressing, if you want to stimulate the economy, put money into people's pockets. Premier Doug Ford signaled the check will soon be in mail. For those of you who don't know, Doug Ford has every intention of sending out checks of $200, tax-exempt checks, to every living, breathing soul in the province of Ontario, including infants, newborns, everybody. So that's going to cost us about $3.2 billion.
Billionaires. Yep.
Yeah, everybody gets it. Okay, that sounds an awful lot like
and we're running deficits. We're running deficits, so that means we're going to be borrowing money and paying interest on it in order to be able to do this.
But I'm like, so Ford is on board with a UBI?
Nah.
I mean, this is a UBI. He's giving every living, breathing human being in the province of Ontario a check for $200. Now, I'll take the $200, sure. But this is a guy who ended the UBI program, who's being sued about it. And now he's coming up with a UBI because this is, if you want to stimulate the economy, put money into people's pockets. The height of hypocrisy, the height of idiocracy, the height of stupid father muckers is Doug Ford.
And this comes at a $3.5 billion price tag. I would rather have a doctor, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
I would rather have the doctor, thank you. With $200 in my pocket, I can't go and buy myself a doctor, Doug Ford. Take the $3.5 billion and spend it on bringing in more doctors or creating more spaces in universities so that we can have doctors that train, or to lower the cost of education to become a doctor by reducing the student loans. But do
Why don't we
something.
just fund education, post-secondary education? Let's just fund it at the state level. Number two, reinstitute the $21 billion you cut over the next 5 years from healthcare. And then come up with a UBI.
This guy, literally, is like, again, I keep on saying there is an essential grease tax, I guess, but for you yourself, the taxpayer, to be greased with your own money in this way takes balls, particularly months after saying, hey, all this stimulus is contributing to inflation. That's a terrible thing. Well, now you got to stimulate the economy. Just
make it make sense.
You want to stimulate the economy, make sure that people in your province are healthy and educated enough to work.
Well, what did he say? Get up off your ASS and get a job? Doug, there are people who are sick because they can't find a doctor or get the treatment they need.
And again, like $200 to absolutely everyone. Listen, again, like you, I'll take $200. I don't need it. It's not going to make or break me. Target it at least. At the very least, freaking target it.
Instead of giving it to everyone, why don't you look at the people who earn under 40K, 50K? I don't know what a cutoff number should be, but anybody who earns under a certain... First off, I got a better idea. Why don't we look at the tax returns of every Ontarian who is exempt from paying taxes? Right? Because under a certain number, you don't pay, right?
Right.
Let's give them $2,000 each. And it's not going to cost us $3.5 billion. You know how simple that would be?
Well, give them more if you want to actually do spend $3.5 billion. Like, partial up, make it mean something.
Make it mean something so that the people who are lesser than, who have lesser than, who are living in poverty can actually pull themselves up by their bootstraps with the money you give them so that they can make their lives better. Much like how Finland ended homelessness by putting people in homes. And the people who were in homes also were able to get mental health counseling. 80% of those people are now productive members of society who have good jobs that pay well. They take care of their homes. They take care of themselves. What's going on with the other 20%? Well, they're working to help them get back on their feet and become productive members of society. We can fix this problem, but there's too much money to be made around not fixing it for a few people.
Yep.
And it hurts the rest of us.
Indeed. Indeed. I'm glad you brought that up, Mr. Grizzly. All right, Mr. Grizzly, cue the cock and we'll come back with a little something from Cranky Canuck.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters, CanadianTarot.com, their uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and The Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. We are grateful to the Crier Media Network for its support, Pete Jarvis for our artwork, and Paul Joseph Something for our opening and closing sequence music.
Just before we go to the clip, I want to highlight this comment from Saucy C. Witrian. There will always be a portion of humanity that won't be productive, in quotations. We have to accept that and understand they still need to be taken care of. You are absolutely right. You're absolutely right. There is a portion of humanity that simply, for whatever reason, whether it's addiction, whether it's the inability to cognitive function, who knows? Whatever the case, there's always going to be a portion of society that cannot be productive, in quotation marks. We have to take care of those people. If we don't, we've lost our humanity. And I think it's important to say that. And I have, again, friends who are lifelong progressive conservatives, capital P progressive, who have said, oh yeah, Absolutely, without question. And I've heard other people say we can end homelessness tomorrow. And again, capital P progressive conservatives, and some a little less progressive who've said we need to take care of the homeless people. We can build barracks. We can do this. There's just no will. We can end this if we choose to. The choice has already been made that we're not going to. And that's by a few people in power who are able to pull puppet strings of people like Doug Ford. Let's go to the clip as a light little ending to make everybody nice and happy.
Yes, the boss says yes.
Well, hey, everybody. Cranky here, and today I've got a little jingle to help us remember the time when Slogan Boy refused his security clearance. That's right. We're talking about Canada's very own dishonorable Pierre Poilievre. There lived a certain man in Ottawa, you know. He was slick and sly, with ambition set to grow. Most people looked at him with questions and with doubt, but to those misled, he was their only way out. He repeats his slogans like a preacher, simple words and rhymes, but he never offers anything deeper, a slogan boy's disguise. Putin, traitor to Canadians, avoiding his security clearance again. Ha ha, Pierre Putin, lying through his teeth again. He'll never be a nation's PM. He led the convoy march, igniting all the strife. There were waving flags for him long before the hype. He voted against Ukraine, ate while the world stood tall, playing politics while the others gave their all. Twisting facts like a populist preacher, full of arrogance and smiles. Taking cues from Republican leaders, spreading fear and lies. Ha ha, Pierre Putin, traitor to Canadians, avoiding his security clearance again. Ha ha, Pierre Putin, lying through his teeth again. He'll never be a nation's PM. Ha ha, Pierre Putin, Russia's favorite sneaky man, a puppet hiding in plain sight. Ha ha, Pierre Putin, dodging all the facts again. It's just a wonder how he carries on. Oh, the baloney. So if you enjoyed that little number, feel free to make your own version and send it along to Canada's Pierre Poilievre,
Leader of His Majesty's Loyal Opposition.
Loyal opposition.
Until next time, stay frosty.
I think the boss liked it.
That was a good one.
Yeah,
that was a good one.
That was a good one. All right, kids and cubs. Have a most beaverific weekend.
I will, I'll see you.
Alistair McBear says bye-bye.
Take care, folks. We'll see you on Monday. And as for the next podcast, I'm not sure. Maybe next weekend, if we can put it together. I'm not sure. But we'll see what we can do.
Okay.
Take care.